Is this thing on? So, it's time for the CapmLew podcast. So I will remind those who view this that we never, we got to turn these on. And then, turn that. Mine turned green. Make sure yours turns green.
There it goes.
I have a special guest today. Luke is presently indisposed.
With child.
Oh, yeah, well, you just told everyone.
Didn't tell him anything.
It's none of their dang business. But I mean, saying that Luke and Maggie are expecting a baby for so many months and then all of a sudden right around the due date having...
Wait, you told them that they've been expecting?
Everyone knows that Luke and Maggie are pregnant.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm good.
You are good, but we didn't announce yet that the child is born.
Whoops.
So,
Hey,
it's fine. Come on. So, I'm going to start the actual podcast now. Almost nobody watches the Facebook, but the people who do watch it, none of them are anything close to a nobody.
There's no one in yet, so.
There's no what yet?
There's no one in yet. You can cut this part.
Oh, we won't. We just put it up raw. We literally do.
What?
We just put it up super raw.
If you want to do in the interest of Luke's privacy, you could.
Oh.
Hypothetically.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. Since no one witnessed it.
I'll do that one. I love this old hat. Jason Jesse hat. Solid. Transgressive. I'm just going to hang this hat here in the iPhone holder. It's good. And also we're joined on the floor by my buddy Rocco, who is officially old dog status.
Yeah.
My dog.
Can I tell them that he's 13 or is that private too?
That's not private. So Seth is in from college. He's my youngest son, for those of you who don't know. And I was walking through the kitchen, just finished roofing for the day, and was like, oh, it's time to come home and be productive, which is not usually how I feel. Usually I feel like, oh, I'm just going to, let's start the podcast. We can do all this on there. So, all right, let's see. How do I always start it? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Hey there, ho there. It's another episode of Yon CapmLew podcast with your host, CapmLew, and guest co-host, my son, Seth.
Hello, everyone.
There we are. We're both lav-mic'd up. We're both in the upper sanctum. And what can I say? For what it's worth, this will be up to a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. I don't know, because dinner is finishing up. What do you think, Seth?
I mean, we'll see. I don't want to miss dinner. You guys have no clue what's going on. It's green curry. Green curry is the best dish that my mother makes, and I would be jealous.
Good. Oh, you're still blinking. You're not connected to the... What's going on? Maybe mine's blinking too. Let me look.
Let's take a look.
Oh, they're both not working. That's okay. Did it turn solid?
Mine is solid.
Okay. Well, the recording also paused. So... I'm gonna do a redo.
Yeah, let's redo it. Sounds good.
Yes. All right. Let's make sure they're solid green. They are solid green.
Do you address your audience directly often, or is this a more of a third person sort of thing?
We'll talk about that in a second. Here we go. All right. For what it's worth, it's the CapmLew podcast. Another episode here with CapmLew, your host, and with me, special guest, co-host, my son, Seth.
Hello, everyone. I'm his son, Seth.
There he is. He's 21 years old. He just finished up. What year of school did you just finish?
So I have a 5-year degree.
Yeah.
And so I think you can say that it's basically my junior year. I finished my 3rd year. I will be graduating next spring, though, officially.
We're going to talk about this because my impression was that Seth went into school having already busted out a year's worth of stuff.
Of a 5-year degree.
And how long have you been in?
I've been in for 3 years.
Oh, that's not as long as it felt.
No,
it felt like you've been in school for, but it is 3 years.
3 years.
My brain tells me it's 3 years, but my mind and my heart and my soul tell me it's been like, when is it over? Not that I'm like wanting to like go backward. I mean, you're 21 now.
I am 21 now. That's correct.
So you're,
I'm growing.
You're out of the nest.
So far.
And tell the audience what you're majoring in.
I am majoring in wildlife biology. That is the study of wild things and how they relate to humans on a ecosystem level. to be specific.
Maybe our listeners could drop some comments. You can always email us at CapmLewQuestions@gmail.com. Yeah. And explain to me what he said meant. I just, I don't know.
We look at the whole we look at the whole piece of the whole pie instead of just one piece at a time. You know,
I get it. I do.
It's the whole thing, but it's quite interesting, and I am very passionate about it.
Well, I'm excited to be here with you. We're not mentioning that Luke and Maggie had their baby, which is why I've been a little sparse on the podcasting, for what it's worth. And that's really exciting. And I'll leave the details. All I'm saying is everything went really well, and I'm really stoked. It's a particularly sweet year because also expecting a grandchild in September over here. And it's really nice. Also just finished a nice day of roofing. Been on a big old project, 3-day project, and just project managing the crap out of an amazing roof that included lots of chimneys and lots of flat sections and things like that. Was loving it. So today's episode is brought to you by, well, first of all, Life Skateboards. They are the boards I ride. I like Life Skateboards because they're made the way I make them. And I'm not making skateboards right now. I'm doing this. And I'm looking forward to making skateboards again. I still have all my equipment and plenty of wood, but I don't feel pressed.
Good.
Pun intended. To go back into making skateboards and satisfying lots of demand there. I like the stuff I'm messing with. So, what was it that we had a false start on the audio? And so we redid it.
You were talking about, you said my age, and then you said out of the nest, and I said hopefully.
Yeah.
Unless that happened this time, this take. But I am 21 years old, and I am figuratively out of the nest. I live in San Marcos, Texas.
There you go.
In a home with 2 other individuals, housemates, roommates, if you will. It's great. I love living in San Marcos. Crystal clear river.
That's a beautiful
thing. If you live in Texas or are familiar with it, it's in Central Texas.
Savage traffic.
Dude, it's bad.
You may as well live in LA.
I mean,
it feels like LA.
Seriously,
I mean,
it's awful.
It is a thing of wonder and merciless.
I think the biggest because living in San Marcos, it has been a very enriching experience. Moving to a completely different place where I know no one.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge is certainly the cultural differences that I experience. Coming from a cold northern industrial city and moving into a warm college town in Texas, southern Texan, or like Texas southern culture. I tend to be a lot more direct than my peers. They tend to be a lot more indirect, and so that creates fun issues to work through together.
And by fun, we mean not fun.
No,
almost at all.
It's pretty awful.
I wanna talk in this episode about directness of speech. This week, I was at a supply house picking up a big load of lumber and roofing supplies in my new truck, which is a thing of absolute beauty and might. Big old F350 Lariat King Cab diesel. Love it. I'm high tit on the hog. And I was picking it up, and Brian, the manager of the whole thing, I just met him a few weeks ago. Every other Friday at this supply house, they have free barbecue for us. And so obviously I love this guy. But I get along with Brian. I didn't know, I couldn't put my finger on it. Because the first time I met him, I mean, he's like the big boss. This is our supplier. But the first time I met him, I heckled him for being white collar. And just very mildly heckled him. And he was super, super cool. And I found out that he's from Massachusetts. and that he worked in Connecticut, like an hour or half hour from my house in New York, where I grew up. I grew up just over the mountains from Danbury, Connecticut, in the Hudson Valley, New York. And I asked him straight up. He's lived in Ohio for like 4 years, and I said, "Well, what do you think of the communication style here?" Because he's like a super professional, and he just rolled his eyes. And we had this conversation about directness of speech. That in the Northeast, you're not taught to be direct. It's necessary in the culture of the Northeast to say what you're really thinking, and you even in Ohio, there's a difference. There are like rewards on the table for being indirect, and I still 24 years in, I still can't figure out what the value of those rewards is. It seems low to me. I'd much rather say what I think and just let the chips fly.
I think it's important to keep in mind with cultural differences that the way that cultures have evolved to be, and the way that they are has value, I think, intrinsically. And so, although it may be difficult to see the value within more indirect sort of communication, I think there is value. For instance, take it in the South, more so than in the North, people tend to be armed. People tend to be armed or have more arms. And so I think it's better to, in some ways, to be gracious and indirect with your problems when things could escalate greatly.
If I had to point out two things about Southern culture that I notice and like, is they are cultures of hospitality and honor.
Mm-hmm. It's more collective than in the North, which tends to be more individual.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good observation. Collective along lines of tradition, family. There are religio-social constructs at work that with which I'm pretty familiar. The South, like you get way down there, that I get.
We have a comment that says the hospitality is fake though.
It's not fake. It's part of an initiation into community. It's part of that's.
I think you're onto it. I think the hospitality is not as they advertise, which is, there's this idea that like you can come over anytime, but what they mean is you're part of the community. I'm introducing you, using hospitality into our community.
You get the same. You can come over anytime in the North. Just when it's a bad time, they say, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to bug off right now because I don't have time for this." Whereas in the South, they will put themselves far out of their way for you, and perhaps this is a vast generalization for our Southern listeners. Excuse us for butchering.
There are lots of exceptions, and there are lots of regional differences even within the South. Yeah. And so that's why I like to be considered about how I describe the cultural differences that I experience. I think it's important to give context to, like, I think when there's also differences between agricultural areas and urban areas.
The historic formation of regional cultures are, let's see, it also means they're obligated to be that way. It seems fake because of the social obligation. Miklos is putting in a good word there. The thing about we're not saying that we think that Southern culture is fake in any way. No culture is fake or real. Cultural constructs are what they are.
It's all trade-offs, advantages and disadvantages, in my opinion.
Yes.
You're not going to get one without the other, I think.
And this isn't a value judgment. I'm more interested in exploring some of the contours.
Yeah.
I don't just have a Northeastern culture either. I haven't lived in the Northeast since I was like 18, and I am 50 in 2 days.
Yeah, you're 50.
And so the character that I am is not the culture I grew up in. As I've aged and as I've learned, I have incorporated things into my character that weren't in the culture that I grew up with. And I've seen things in cultures that were different to mine. I'm just thinking of America. And when I think of, and I think that it is a beautiful thing to have. Now, in the Northeast, you have honor cultures too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's Cosa Nostra and
you
Omerta.
Within the Northeast, you even have more sort of sectional differences because there's a very distinct Italian culture. There's a very distinct Jewish culture, and now Russian and Central Asia. Anyways,
even in New York, you'd have beef between the boroughs when they moved out into my area. You'd have people who were all Brooklyn or all Bronx, and I don't know what I think about those things. I can't figure out this. Growing up in SoCal in the Badlands, I noticed a difference in how people treat each other. When I moved outside of California, these comments are fire today. When I moved into more rural areas where people wave or pull over and see if you need help, oh boy, now you've brought up waving and pulling over to see if you need help. I think it might be universal that rural cultures tend to have helpful, hospitable aspects, because the kind of trouble you get into in rural cultures is like starve to death, freeze to death, trouble. Breaking down on a highway in New Mexico, if someone doesn't pull over, you will die of exposure to heat or cold like that day.
I think a good generalization that we've heard from our friend Jason Wren. He often says, and he's from, where's he from? He's from Indiana.
Yeah, Terre Haute area.
He's from Terre Haute, and he grew up, there.
Rural punk rock.
Right. He says, I'm not nice, but I'm kind.
Well, my dad, when I went to college in Kentucky, coming from New York, my dad took me aside and he gave me this really great talk. And it included some material along these lines. Lew, people are going to be very sweet. They're going to be very nice. But don't confuse that with the idea that they like you. They're going to treat you down there like people up here treat you when they like you. But down there, don't think that means that they like you. And coming into the South from the North as a kid, I recognize that I'm going to receive some very good treatment for which I'm grateful, but that I need to understand that this doesn't mean that I can take for granted the labor that goes into building trust and being, in a way, worthy of somebody's affection. I need to behave myself particularly carefully that I don't assume that I'm in good. And that served me really well. It did.
I think within my experience, some context before we talk about that, I grew up here in Cincinnati. I grew up in urban Cincinnati, like 10-minute bus ride downtown. It's not far. I grew up in a very hostile neighborhood when I was young, and it gentrified along the way. I have a father who's from New York, and we would visit somewhat frequently.
With some regularity.
Yeah. And so I've grown up to have a bit of a northern edge, you could say. I tend to be direct. I tend to be more angry in the way I communicate things, even though I'm not actually angry.
What would we call it? Aggressive, aggressive, assertive.
I think assertive is the best way to put it.
We tend to squawk when we have a boundary issue.
What I like to point out is the way I drive. I grew up in a city, and I drive like that, and I started riding a motorcycle when I was 16.
15 and a half.
15 and a half, I started riding a motorcycle. Got my license at 16.
Yeah.
And I had to become very aggressive when people would almost kill me every day. I would have to become aggressive and yell at people and make a big deal about things. And so I learned early. Also, we live in a city. People will park in the crosswalk in our neighborhood, and or almost kill us as kids walking home from our bus stop. They would almost kill us in the crosswalk, and you have to yell at those cars because they won't see you.
Yeah.
And so I grew up like yelling, honking, getting people's attention so they won't kill me.
Yeah.
Then I moved to San Marcos. I have this same established attitude, but now there are guns involved.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Our neighborhood in particular has had guns involved since forever, and we've just had a reflaring of that. We had gun violence. Actually, I don't like the term gun violence very much. We had violence that included gunplay just the other day, right on the street. It was a terrible situation.
But now I moved to a place where everybody owns a gun and could have a gun on them.
Right. Not
everybody, of course, but a very large percent of the population. And so I had to click out of this, like fight or flight mode of like traffic is war, you know what I mean, like this.
Right.
to if I yell at the wrong guy, it could escalate.
That's one of you and I have different approaches to driving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the same mess he is. In terms of motorcycling, one of the things that is counterintuitive this is up for debate, but I really don't want to hear your side. On a motorcycle. Did you like it?
I like that one.
Thanks, bud.
That's how I feel, but I've never had the words to say it.
I give you that. This is what fathers do. So, in motorcycling, when riding, here's the thing. I tend to occupy my space. It's a principle in my riding life that's very important. For example, when I'm on a curved highway or a curved road, I will tend to take left position. I call that lane position number 3. I tend to take left position in my lane so that cars that are coming into my lane will see me as close to them and move over. Now, from lane position number 3 to the left, I'm ready to get as far right as I can in my lane without ditching at any time. I'm very defensive, but I occupy left lane position because I want them to feel me. I want them to see and feel me there. And but that said, I tend to ride kind of like a grandpa because I'm always riding with a mind to get to position 1 on the right side of my lane at any moment, especially on twisties. And so blind curves, I don't take the murder line, on that. But I tend to, and the other thing is in traffic is if I'm in stop and go traffic, which is deadly, stop and go is just, it's a nightmare.
I'll just wait.
Well, we have a law in Ohio that I'm allowed on my motorcycle to take the shoulder to the next exit, up to 3 miles. I'm allowed to take the shoulder up to 3 miles to the next exit because stop and go traffic is, people just don't remember it's a motorcycle. So what I'll do is within my lane, I'll do leany curvies and just serpentine my way along the traffic. And you just want to be seen. You want people to know you're there.
I think,
but where we differ is in the culture of driving. I'm a de-escalator. I am okay, man, go ahead, take it, is my attitude because of exactly what you're saying. Because people apparently, for one reason or another, or 6 reasons or 20 reasons, seems volatile lately. Just does it? I don't know if it's actually more volatile.
I think it's just getting warmer.
Well,
I think
Yeah,
I think the crazies come out more.
What I tend to do is I don't punish people. I don't escalate anything. If someone wants to cut me off, I let them cut me off. Give them the space. If someone does something rude, I honked good at someone today, but it's very rare I honk.
I definitely like honking as means to communicate with other drivers. I agree with you in that spirit of I mean it's safer. But I think what I'm more describing is I'm at a stoplight and I'm already 8 feet away from the line.
Yeah.
And some left turner comes and
almost clips you anyway.
Even though I'm so far back.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do other than yell and wave your hand, gesticulate, get the guy's attention, right? So
I support that. It's different to what I usually do, but I'm not critical of that.
Right.
I think that's perfectly legitimate, and maybe you'll make them a little more aware. I mean, I know a lot more aggressive things that people do. I know guys who have chased other cars down and yelled in the window, thrown things.
I haven't chased anyone, but I haven't chased anyone, but in Minecraft, I've done some more escalatory things in the past.
Yeah.
But
in Minecraft, did you say in Minecraft?
In Minecraft, yeah.
Did you hear that? I don't know what I am right now.
In Minecraft, I have kicked someone's car, or and things that I'll save it for another time.
I literally can't even with the in Minecraft. That's hilarious. I need a moment. I do.
But so like now you take like I have this very assertive nature and communication style that I think is common amongst industrial cities,
among the youths
from like Chicago, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh,
Rust Belt.
Well, Philadelphia, Jersey City, New York.
That's Rust Belt.
Does it go all the way up to Boston, the Rust Belt? Because Boston is also the same sort of.
Boston is only known for molasses.
No, but all of these cities have a very similar. I will say energies, because obviously they're very different. But then you take this kid, living in a city, you move them to a place where everyone is happy and hippie and smiling.
Where's that?
San Marcos.
Oh, okay, yeah. San Marcos is kind of hippie.
Oh, totally. Well,
because it's part of the Austin smudge.
It is. And I tend to, here's an example of something I experienced as a child that I'm sure you can relate to.
I probably was there.
You go to school and you're having a good day, and so you smile, and someone comes up to you and goes, "What are you smiling about?" That's right. So, and so that's kind of what I'm used to. And so I moved to San Marcos, and I enjoy busting people's balls.
Oh, you're mean.
Well, I'm not that mean. I used to be pretty mean. I'm not mean anymore.
That's good.
I've loosened up. I give people breaks.
I like that.
I'm not 16 anymore. I'm only slightly more mature.
You're slightly 16.
I'm not mature. That's not what I'm claiming. But
I mean, you're 21. It would be okay if you were pretty mature.
We'll see, right?
Nobody's gonna hate a guy for growing up.
I think the more mature thing is to admit that I don't know how mature I am.
In regrouping here on today's podcast, my concept today is directness of speech. You're on the CapmLew podcast, so if you've listened this far, then whatever happens next is on you. I'm talking today about my own personal appreciation for directness of speech, recognizing how uncomfortable this can make other people. But you don't have to go through a whole lot of the 60-odd episodes that we've made to see that we take some things quite head-on, really gnarly stuff. There's always in me this wondering about, how long till, you're canceled for taking on a topic. We've already listed topics that we don't know if we're going to be able to take on because we're not sure that there's a capacity for civil, response to just the fact that it got talked about. Part of the CapmLew podcast is just charging the guns and going, okay, well let's try it. Let's try it. But today I'm giving this short episode since Luke and his wife just had a baby. given this short episode to
In Minecraft.
the concept of directness of speech, both in and outside of Minecraft, which evidently is a fundamental rubric for Seth's thought process. Makes sense.
Well, if I'm going to announce I did something on the internet that may be unsavory, it happens in Minecraft.
Are you a millennial?
No.
What's the deal with that? I'm a Gen Xer.
I'm Gen Z. I am.
So is that after Gen X?
That is after millennial.
Oh. I don't know about these things because I am pretty typically uninterested.
Millennials wear tight pants.
What?
And oversized shirts.
I thought it had to do with shared experience and around.
Well, it's like how you guys, wore big hair and
Jinko jeans. No, that was '90s kids.
No, yeah, you guys.
No, we were in the Jinko thing.
Yeah.
'98. It was a little bit after. I was a little old.
You guys had leg warmers.
Yes,
in the 80s?
You're talking about the girls. Big hair, big hair on the top and in the sides. The back always looked like a rat's nest.
No, so
I don't know what girls had going on in the 80s.
My generation wears different clothing, but you know what I love about coming back to a place with more direct communication is I love when strangers yell at each other in public.
Are you speaking of coming back to Cincinnati from San Marcos?
Yeah.
Because in what I've seen is look, it's always possible to commit a faux pas that causes trouble, but the problems I run into is when it's like there's an unforgivableness to something you did, and you don't know what it was. You don't understand what the deal is. I saw this in France. We had a friend in France who was Algerian. That is, she was a French lady from a French family, but she grew up in Algeria, and then they had a civil war in Algeria and kicked out all these French Algerian colonists, and she was born there, and she got kicked out of her land and came back to her parents' home country. And the Algerian diaspora who returned to France were they didn't have the same worldview, and they got grouped. They called them les pieds noirs, which means the black feet, and it was very racist, and it was very colonial, and it was very dark. And she lived as an outcast, and what tends to happen is it snowballs. You get treated like an outcast, and so then you give up on that approval, which, by the way, that's not the worst decision. Living our lives for the approval of other people is a fool's errand. But recognizing the value of membership in a community and trying to build understanding, well, it can break down when you're rejected like that. And she was not a terrible lady, but she was not a well-behaved. She went ahead and went like I have. I mean, similar to me, I'm fully eccentric. I gave up on that real early in life, and I'm fully an eccentric person. And I see that in lots of situations. Now, up in the north, you do have another thing when you talk about northern culture versus southern culture. The north has much more of the melting pot experience that was the American experiment.
That's a simple explanation, though.
You're going to school with kids from Albania, with Albanian parents, with Indian parents, Pakistani parents. You're all becoming friends. You're all playing together. It goes well, it goes poorly, and everybody's experiencing lots of diversity. And it's not just diversity of like melanin in the skin. It's diversity of entire family cultures kind of crashing and clashing together. And when I was growing up, all unified by the fact that all of us kids speak English as a first language, and we're working it out in 1980s America. And lots of kids here in Ohio, when we used to place foreign exchange students, we'd place a kid out where they'd never seen a kid from another country, and a German was terribly exotic to these kids, It was awesome. The kids were awesome. The students at the school were awesome, but they didn't experience that kind of diversity.
Well, I think it also really depends because, you know, like occasionally you go to a place where it's very rural and they've never seen anyone, or you go to a place where it's very urban and they haven't seen anyone, where the population,
you do get that in urban centers.
The population can often be mostly black or mostly Latino, you know, and
mostly Albanian, or mostly. I mean, in New York, we had areas that were Jamaican and Albanian and Italian.
Yeah. You earlier you were referring to we hosted an exchange student who was from Germany, and he went to a primarily black school, and they were amazed, or like not amazed, but they had not really encountered that. But I think they did.
They were amazed because he was amazing.
No, I think they were used to it. I think because I went to a high school in the same district, and one of my best friends in my early years was Hasib Ahmed.
Yes.
Right?
He's a sweet kid.
Yeah, he's
nice
all right.
Family.
Good guy. He, you know, his dad owns the shawarma place, you know.
So you got to hook up right there.
You know, I'm not gonna discount, you know. I'm not that close, you know. But no, I think the reason why you get a more significant melting pot is because in the north, and I'm saying the north as in above the Mason-Dixon line,
yeah,
right, out to about, you know, Chicago area, around Rust Belt and up, there are a lot of city centers where people move to.
It's cosmopolitan.
Yeah, well, just look at New York. It's one of the most diverse places in America, and
yeah, that's like what I'm saying is
totally.
You have that versus when we place a student from a foreign country in Brown County, Ohio, and they have a great culture. Like Brown County, Ohio has a great culture, but the culture is everything revolves around the school, the sports. All this stuff, like the school and the church are hubs for the whole community, and it's cool. The students usually, when they get there, are really disappointed that they're not in New York City or LA, but by the time they've been there for 3 or 4 months, they're going paintballing, they're doing all the four-wheeling and that sort of stuff. I mean, they're having a great time, and they join a few clubs at school, and so there's a really rich American culture there, rural Americana, that I really love. Yeah. And those are areas I love to go to because people are warm and hospitable, and they tend to be very kind. And I tend to be very careful about presuming upon those things. And, you know, I'm careful about overstaying my welcome and things like that. But I love American culture. I love those things. But the whole time, I have a great appreciation for being able to be direct. I've said on the podcast before that I went to Brooklyn on my motorcycle, big trip, included Massachusetts and some other places, and I wound up in Brooklyn visiting Zara. Were you there?
No.
It was just me and Mom.
Yeah, I was not there.
Yeah, and so we were visiting our amazing international student who had stayed with us for a year. And she and I was in the Washington Square Park, and people had dogs, and I just started talking about dogs with people, and everyone was so direct, and it was just so. And I also began to speak more quickly and just fall into the whole New York flow when I'm up there. Down here, I tend to speak more slowly. You know, I accommodate, but I also appreciate the culture of Ohio. Has a good bit of Southern culture in it.
I think
it does.
I don't know if it's Southern. I think it's agricultural culture.
Maybe it's rural. It's just rural. Maybe it's rural culture.
People. Because I mean, like
maybe it is. Yeah.
Because if you think about upstate New York, people talk slower than they do in the city.
Not only that, but in upstate New York, there are more country stations on the radio than there are other kinds of stations.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of it comes down to rural versus urban.
We might not be talking about North and South. We might just be talking about cultures that are more rural or traditional. I don't know, bro.
My experience is certainly North and South because I moved from one city to another, right? The greater Cincinnati area has 3 million people in it.
Yeah.
Inside the more condensed city, it's between 300 and 500,000 people.
Yes.
And you look at Austin, and Austin has similar numbers.
Yes.
The greater Austin area is about 1 million people. You know what I mean?
Is that all?
At least with the Google search. I could be wrong.
I'm not offended if you are.
I could be wrong. I'm not an expert.
What is this?
But okay. Well, let's take a look. But no. But I'm moving from one medium to large, population city to another, and my differences the cultural differences I experience definitely are based in north and south, or north and Texas. Because there's all sorts of debate.
I'm listening.
What do we got? What's this quarter? You're looking at a quarter right now, huh?
I have a quarter in my hand. Okay, so everybody already knows who's been here for 60 episodes. So
sure.
I'm like high functioning OCD. This is a 2015 Nebraska. It says homestead on it. It's got some corn and a barn and a well with a bucket. But it feels light.
You know what I learned? You want to know what I learned?
What'd you learn?
So
I do want to know, but I don't have time to hear it all. But go for it.
So I have a mental illness I was diagnosed with. I'm not ashamed of it. It's a major depressive disorder.
I probably have it too.
You likely do. I mean, you've been, diagnosed with something similar, but
well, they gave it a shot.
What people call clinical depression is often major depressive disorder. It's often called that, but one major symptom of depression is short attention span and distractibility. Yeah, that it fits, right? Well, because ADHD is a whole different thing. It's not even similar. OCD is a whole other thing.
Dude,
what you may be experiencing is just depression and anxiety, and
these are hard-earned coping skills. What you're looking at a man who has just hard-earned coping skills. Do you remember karate?
Yeah.
I mean, duh, of course you do. Seth was really good at karate. Seth went into karate. You were getting bullied, right?
Of course I was.
And I was living my best life at the time. So, you went to karate, and I wasn't going to join. Did you know that?
No, I knew. I remember.
And you were like 12.
Yeah, I was like 12.
And I had just been to my doctor, and he was like, "Oh yeah, not good." Yeah. He was so cool. And you can go on Cincy Stories and listen to a story I tell from that time of my life of not being safe. I almost got on the no-fly list because of an anxiety episode with some tones, some dissociative tones.
You just had a panic attack on an airplane. Those happen.
You're gonna have that.
You're gonna have that.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Before I was on medication, and really quickly,
yeah,
there's no shame in taking medication for brain stuff. Before I was on medication, I would go to the grocery store and have a panic attack and almost pass out. It happens.
Yeah. So what had happened was Seth went to karate, and then you basically wanted me to train too.
Yeah.
And I felt really happy about that because it perfectly dovetailed with having anxiety issues, and it really helped until it didn't.
Another time.
Right. And
I mean, honestly, I don't even.
We got a good 4 years out of it.
Yeah,
we really did. We had a really good 4 years of training and a great time.
Yeah.
And
I learned a lot.
Met some good people. And really grateful for the karate experience we had, and then it helped me tremendously. Just having an hour twice a week to be in one place doing one thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, motorcycling came into my life.
Likewise.
Around the same time, and motorcycling is pinnacle mental smoothing. Yeah, really good. And so motorcycling and karate have both been really good. Skateboarding is a little bit more fraught with...
skateboarding makes me sad.
Yeah.
It makes...
And let's pivot into that. Let's pivot into our views on skateboarding, which is what we purport.
Since I stopped skateboarding, I stopped skateboarding when I was 19, 2 years ago. My my wrists and my ankles function.
So there's a therapeutic aspect to what some people might call taking a break. Although I have no interest in you being some lifer skateboarder. There is 0% of me that thinks a person ought to never stop.
I'm not core.
Yes,
I'm not core.
I see.
I'll say it.
I see being core in the parlance of the '90s and early 2000s. I see.
I have skateboarding tattoos, and I'm not core, and that makes me a poser. It's the truth.
Everyone's a poser. Everyone's a wannabe. Just pick what you want to be. Well, pick well what you want to be. I can't say enough about that. The whole podcast is devoted to such an idea.
I think another time you should ask me about my perspective on the Cincinnati scene.
Ooh, I don't want to talk about it.
Well,
today.
No, not today.
But
we can talk about it another time.
One reason is because our perspectives on the Cincinnati scene are probably broadly applicable.
I should say instead of my perspective, my experience.
Yeah.
I mean to say we should talk about my experience.
I mean, if you're comfortable with that, I'm certain that there are lots of people in your story who would not be comfortable with that, and that doesn't necessarily reflect well on them.
I have no names to say.
Right.
I have no names to say. I will respect the anonymity that those people could have.
I like discussions like that because they give room for if the shoe fits, wear it type of. I have talked about things that I've experienced before and had people from multiple cities across the nation reach out to me and say, you may as well have been talking about our city. And I see there's a universality to human experience that makes it really good, not as they would say in the modern parlance to talk shit, but to talk about that. Talk about those things is not the same thing as just griping or trying to grandstand on some complaint.
To bring up direct and indirect speech one more time.
Yeah.
I think that there is more value in indirect speech in skateboarding communities than direct speech in skateboarding communities.
Talk about it.
I in this skateboarding community here in Cincinnati, people tend to be more direct, at least towards me. I would go to skate parks as a young kid, and I push Mongo. I do it. I push Mongo.
I have two sons who push Mongo.
I don't care. It's what's comfortable. I like it. I used to shred. I don't anymore. I used to be able to do 3-foot high ollies, and I could grind for 10 feet. It's on ramps and on ledges, but and I would go to skate parks and without you, right? And people would be so mean, and people would threaten to hurt me,
yeah, because
of these differences. And I go to Texas, right?
And people were chill.
Everybody is so nice, and I know people think I'm a poser. It's not different, but no one will say it, and they will treat me with more basic human respect than in other places.
Interesting. I took one of my sons to a skate day. It was a competition, and they had a kids section of the competition. He was 10, and he at the time pushed Mongo. That's the kid who can only ollie high switch, but he ollies both ways. All my boys are big. They're big men.
He couldn't ollie, but he could heel flip. I think is the way it went.
Yeah, it was what he could do was he could fakey 180 ollie over 3 boards, but he couldn't ollie regular over 1 board. And then he could ollie over 2 boards straight, but it had to be switched. He also started riding with his right and his left hand at the same time, and I'm sure that, if skateboarding were curiouser, that she would figure out what's going on. But she's an incurious girl. So, he did. I paid $20 for him to do a run, and it was all to support the event. He's a 10-year-old kid, and when he started skating, this was in 2004. 2004. I wasn't involved with anything. I wasn't in anything. I hadn't caused any trouble. When he took his run for, it's like 1 minute run to show what he could do, there was an eruption of booing. And it was among the teenagers. They just started booing my son. And the contest organizers, who were my age and older, just let it go on. And I realized that in this area of the country, at that moment in skateboarding's history, you could have a 10-year-old child be booed while they were skating just for pushing Mongo. And it put a bit of a chip on my shoulder toward those things, because that kind of behavior can be very damaging to a child. It's inexcusable, and yet that day it was excused by all the cool guys, all the historic people. And there were people there who were like Alien Workshop adjacent and direct. It was there's a word, unconscionable. I don't really know what it means. I've never noticed myself conscioning anything, but if I were going around conscioning things, I don't think I'd be able to conscion that. And I didn't conscion it that day either. It lit a fire in me that this juvenile, infantile culture in skateboarding needed to change. There have been changes, but that's not just a skateboarding thing. That's a human nature conformity cult thing, and it's ugly wherever it raises its head. And if we don't work to stamp it out, it's only going to grow. So both Seth and I mean, he grew up with me like that. He was on my shoulders at that. He was 3 years old at that thing. I got a picture of you on my shoulders that day. My beard was short. And but yeah, so that kind of, it's fine to be direct. What's the content of your speech? I said something.
Yeah.
I was on a roof today, and I said something to the guy, and he said, "Do you mean that?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I mean it. I said it." And it was one of those moments of meeting where the guy was like, "Whoa," because I'm not polite. I'm direct, and maybe I am polite. Maybe I know how to be polite in some settings.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
In most settings, I am successful at achieving politeness. But when it comes to booing a child, or making women feel uncomfortable, or picking on somebody because of their sense of orientation and identity, because of their sense of gender or sex, stuff
or sexual preference.
That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, if someone has a cultivated sense of identity and they're made to feel badly because of it, that's not cool. I think that skateboarding is largely wising up to this.
I think so.
It's really dumb, because most of our events are put on by people who would like to sell us things. So why would they make girls uncomfortable when girls are a 50% of the population and a potential 100% market increase? I mean, this stuff boggles my mind. But we pulled off 35 years as skateboarding, making girls feel uncomfortable, and I think it's still happening today. Although in the competition series, you know who makes girls feel uncomfortable at that now?
Who?
Other girls.
Yeah.
They be savage to one another on the sidelines in the competition thing. I mean, savage.
For a long time, girls weren't core.
Yeah, now there's a strange. Well,
I don't believe that. But
right now, one of my worries is I see a lot of girls skateboarding being gobbled up by corporate interests.
And to be clear, I'm making fun of people who believe in core and not core. I think skateboarding is for everybody.
I've heard that before.
It's different from skateboarding. Let me tell you something that's funny before we wrap up. I don't know when we wrap up.
We're gonna wrap up now. Yeah.
Let me tell you something funny. I guess it's not that funny, but my roommates are both from Texas. They're both less direct than I am. And I have to, and we're all good friends. You know, the three of us are really good friends. And so we have rapport where I can be like this. I'll ask one of them, I'll be like, hey, can I get a slice of bread? Do you mind if I make a sandwich with your bread? And they'll go, okay. And I go, that doesn't sound like it's okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like you don't want me to have some of your bread. So if that's how you feel, you better tell me no.
Yeah, because it just went from 1 to 3 because you seem reluctant, and I punished that.
And so, and it's always like, okay, well, no. It's like, great. And
so you basically have been part of their life to teach them how to say no.
Well, they are saying no. They're saying no according to the way that their culture says no.
So that's a Texas no.
But I'm too dumb.
Or impatient. I'm impatient with that. Like if I say, hey, I'm out of bread. Can I score a couple slices of your bread, you know, in a living situation? And the guy goes, well, okay. I go, thanks. And then I eat my sandwich.
I learned my lesson. I did that.
Yeah.
I learned my lesson, and I found out that they were mad that I took their bread.
Unforgivable. Unforgivable. But if I say, but what I've done this dance before, is this how it goes sometimes? I'm not putting this on your friends, but in general, it's like...
My friends are lovely.
It's like, oh, hey, look, hey, bro, I'm out of bread, want a sandwich, can I snag a couple pieces of your bread? And they're like, okay. You know, you get that, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's laden with unspoken meaning, and you now know the code, and so you go, you know what, it's okay. I'll make a wrap with some lettuce. Then they're going to go, no, take the bread. And then if you take the bread, is it okay?
I think sometimes, yeah.
Maybe the dance has to happen first.
I think sometimes with people, what they want to know is that you're being polite.
Yeah.
But I'm not very good at that.
So you skipped half of the dance.
I just skip to the part where they tell me no. Or I'll go,
or you stayed at the part where they told you yes and you just ate the bread.
Yeah, sometimes they don't like that. But I do this thing sometimes. This is when I'm being immature. I will trap them.
You are a torturer.
I will trap them.
He tortures.
And I'll go, hey, do you mind if I grab a couple pieces of bread? They'll go, okay. I go, are you sure it's okay? Are you totally sure? And they go, no, I know it's fine. I know that it's not
fine. Everything so far is indicating not fine.
And they'll be like, hey man, you can just tell me no that you don't want me to have any bread. And I'm like, okay, will you please not have some of my bread? I go, but I gave you bread. And I'm always kidding, but I am mad that I gave them bread and they're not giving me some back.
Well, you know
I lure them.
There's a dance involved that I don't tend to know the steps to. I've traveled a lot, and like now I work with folks from Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico, and they're different. Their cultures are different, and I don't know a thing about these cultural differences. So I don't know while I'm working whether I'm coming off as extremely rude or as like, you know, I don't know if I'm causing stress or relieving stress. And I don't know if I thank them, if I'm insulting them, or if I'm causing them to resent me. And I'm flying blind, just making whatever mistakes I'm making, you know. And so I don't know, you know, it's going to be what's going to be. So we're in the mini episode series of the CapmLew podcast where Luke is off. He's my normal co-pilot, and I haven't. My dog is whining.
Yeah, come here, Rocco.
I'm not sure if I'm going to pull in another co-host this week, but we will be back on track probably in another week, and probably I'll start doing episodes over at Luke's house with just audio, maybe video. We'll see. And well, thank you for listening, those of you who made it through 55 minutes and 27 seconds so far, and we're grateful for you. Again, Life Skateboards, Everything Skateboarding Magazine soon coming, and also the Makers Movement and Art of Board Making on Instagram. Check them out. there are so many makers now. I'm seeing makers all over everything, which is extremely gratifying to me. I'm so happy that skateboarding is growing tons of makers right now. It's super cool. I may never have to ever buy another piece of far-flung factory wood ever again in my life. And special shout out to Frank Gardner at Texican Skateboards. Amazing paint jobs, great laminate work. Love Frank Gardner and his work. So there you go. CapmLew podcast. This is what it was.
Thank you for having me.
I said what I said. It's on you. You're the one who was foolish enough to listen this far. Thanks again for what it's worth. There, and then we've got video afterglow.
I turn off these lav.
Yeah, we take the lavies off.
Put them on the charger, right?
And then what we do you know that we upload these raw video files from Facebook? We upload them to the GoobTube.
I do know that. That's a good move.
And we just have a slam worth of low quality audio, video face material.
I think it's just better than nothing. I think
absolutely. That's what I think.
I think just
that's how I think.
As you grow, I think the move is just to I think to get to instead of recording off a Podbean, recording onto another device and uploading the audio with. I mean, just in the future.
I completely. Presently, that's fine. Everything's a booby trap. It was a wrench. A knife. Oh yeah, it was a D. Kistner knife. This is a great knife. Let me see it. Give D a shout out. D's back to making knives again. I'm very happy with my D. Kistner custom knife. This is a great, very thick, 3/8 inch thick. Very, very, I love it. High carbon steel.
Doesn't taste great. Easy. Don't taste it. Not a great taste.
I thought it tasted pretty darn good.
Okay. Well, I think you and I have different preferences.
Metal. So tastes like metal. Love D. Love his knives. Love his work. Also, Michael O'Mockerly. His knives made just an hour from my house. Invited me to come up and forge a knife with him. Invited me to come up and forge a knife, and for a year and a half, 2 years, I haven't done it. I'm an idiot.
Oh, dude, the green curry's ready.
We're going to go eat green curry. You guys, thanks for being with us. Mucho apreciado, and we'll catch you on the flip side.